It's been a week of wild price swings for commodities. Some C-suite executives at the major oil and basic material companies have been taking advantage of the price swings. What have they been doing? Let's bring in Ted Dixon, CEO of Inc. Research. Ted, it's great to see you. What's the pattern you're seeing among energy and materials executives?
Well, thanks, Andy, for having me back. And they've been buying the Powell pullback. Mr. Powell was out musing about a potential recession last week, and that sent stocks tumbling. And insiders and many companies, particularly in the resource area, they took advantage of that. They were buying the pullback. So a little bit more confidence, at least over the medium term. You know, insiders tend to have sort of on these contrarian kind of pullback situations, they kind of tend to have a medium term outlook, Andy. So like a year or more. So I wouldn't take this as necessarily a technical bottom type of signal, but it's more like the we're going to make it kind of sentiment that I think they're displaying here. That look, we're going through a rough patch, but they seem pretty optimistic about the medium term.
You have a forest focus for us today. West Fraser Timber, the industry giant. Are we seeing buying there?
We are. I thought we would focus on the forest products area because we've heard so much gloom about the U.S. housing market. And look, higher interest rates are obviously going to have an effect. But I thought it was interesting that we've seen insider buying at a number of forest product firms. In contrast, we have not seen insider buying in the home builders in the U.S. So let's take a look at the forest products. West Fraser Timber, as you said, big player in the space. They came out with their Q1 results, and they were fairly upbeat. They mentioned that they had some logistical problems, but medium term they were optimistic about the need for their products in the whole sort of renovation area, as well as in looking at industrial and commercial applications. Andy, what's really interesting is that Chatham House estimated that concrete is responsible between 4 to 8% of global emissions. Lumber used in construction can help reduce that. So there's a couple of bullish developments in the industry that could provide a tailwind when obviously we have this headwind of higher rates. But we saw an insider in that company spend just over $250,000 Canadian buying shares here in the recent pullback. So that caught our attention.
Interfor, go into a bit more detail there, if you would, on IFP.
Right. So a smaller firm, still over $1 billion market cap. They've seen their sales on the rise, and they echoed some of the sentiment that we heard from West Fraser. That look, the renovation cycle is still in play. Yes, maybe it's uncertain in terms of how interest rates are going to impact demand for new homes. But we've seen two insiders, including the CEO, buy the pullback here recently. The two insiders each spending about $100,000 Canadian buying stock.
And then Weyerhaeuser, the American giant.
Right. So it's not just Canadian stocks that we've seen insider buying, also in the U.S. I would say that the valuations of the Canadian stocks are lower. West Fraser Timber, it has a trailing PE under 3. Interfor trailing PE under 2. Weyerhaeuser trailing PE under 10. So a little bit more maybe priced in for growth there, but they are also fairly upbeat about the wood products areas. And yet they're engineered. They expect Q2 to have stronger performance in the wood products area. At least that was when they reported their Q1 results. And we saw a director, Albert Monaco. He spent about $250,000 buying a stock in that firm. So there we go. We have 3 forest product companies, in North America. Buying, seeing insider buying in amongst this kind of gloomy pullback. So I thought that was interesting. It's interesting that, this sort of the primary industry we've seen the buying not so much in the home builders or the value-added industries. So that may, also provide some perspective for your viewers in terms of, what insiders are signaling in terms of, where maybe the value is in this whole supply chain in this inflationary environment.